Hello again, welcome to the Knife Yak channel. In my previous video, I demonstrated the basic procedures for using the Spyderco Tri-Angle Sharpmaker. And today I'm going to talk about sharpening serrations using this tool. So for sharpening serrations, there's more than one way you can do this. And I think if you're not using a triangle system, you're kind of going to have to use some kind of a cylinder-shaped rod. And you could do that with, this is a DMT diamond shank sharpening tool, and it's tapered so you can find just the right, if you're in the mood to actually sharpen each and every serration scallop, you could just find the part of the shank that's thick enough and just kind of run it onto those grooves at the appropriate angle, which would be a little bit time consuming. You just have to have nothing better to do with your time, I guess. It would have the advantage of being able to preserve the teeth. And of course, the problem is on a typical serration pattern, you often have the big scallops, which are fairly straightforward to sharpen, but you've also got these little tiny ones. And most sharpening tools don't go into those tiny little, the little tiny scallops. And that's especially going to be the case with cold steel serrations. This is a cold steel Vaquero Grande. So yeah, on the cold steel serrations, you get the big ones, which you could sharpen as normal, but these little tiny, there's like 3 or 4 little tiny grooves in between the big scallops, and there's just no way you can get down in there. So this little in-between serrations are impossible to sharpen down inside between the little ridges. Now you could sharpen, if you don't care about just kind of flattening them down, you could sharpen the Spyderco, you could sharpen the cold steel serrations on the Spyderco Sharpmaker, but when you do, it won't go down in those little teeth. It'll just flatten them off over time, and it will of course round off the peaks as well, which is also the case with the Spyderco serrations. So I'm going to demonstrate how to sharpen serrations using the Spyderco Tri-Angle Sharpmaker and the Spyderco knife. So this is a military, the old version of the military. I've had this one since the late 90s or thereabouts. But you'll notice that it has an unserrated portion near the tip, and that part's kind of, over time, has become kind of convexed, right? There's a little bit of a burr there too. So I'm going to show you how you do this. Now, with serrations, you're only going to sharpen the show side, which is the side where the serrations are ground, and we will not, we will use the other rod, but that's going to only be to remove the burr. And so if I remember the Spyderco instruction manual from decades ago when I actually had that, I think I remember it saying that you would do maybe 3 strokes or so on the grind side, and then 1 stroke on the non-grind side. So just alternating, so 3 and 1 and 3 and 1 or something like that. I don't do that kind of numeration when I do it. I will just sharpen the grind side for several more than that amount of strokes, and then I would occasionally do a very light stroke on the non-grind side, but at a much flatter angle than is recommended. So here's the basic way you do it, right? So you just place the knife on the against the rod with the spine oriented upwards, just as you would any other knife, and you just basically draw it along there like that, and you can hear it just kind of catching on the scallops, right? So So you just do that however many times you think you want to do it. Now on the other side, I'm not going to use that same angle because I don't want to create a significant micro bevel on the opposite side. So one of the advantages to the serrated blade is that it's basically a chisel grind, which means you get really good geometry. The edge angle is really, since it's only beveled on one side of the blade, you effectively get a much shallower combined, what do you call it? The combined angle between this ground side of the blade versus this other is a much flatter angle than if you were sharpening both sides. So I want to keep that good geometry, that sort of chisel grind geometry as I sharpen. So I'll do a few strokes like this. And I don't want to go too fast either because I want the corners, or the corner of the rod, to have a chance to actually go down into the groove. If I go too fast, and if I just do that, I think it's probably just bouncing over the grooves, or bouncing over the scallops, rather than actually going down in there and following the contour, right? So I'm going to take my time and do it kind of slow and let that triangle corner actually get down into the scallop. Okay, and then when I'm ready to do the other side, I'll lay the knife almost, but not quite flat on the other stone, because I don't want to scratch the blade either. So I'll tilt it slightly, but just barely, right? And that will take that burr off on this side, right? So we'll sharpen this side. And then gently deburr it on that side. And then sharpen it on the serrated side. And then gently deburr it over here. Okay. Now, there's a very important fact that I should have mentioned, and it kind of slipped my mind. But these Spyderco knives have the serration pattern ground in at 15 degrees. So we're going to use the 30 degrees per side sharpening angle. If I get this up here where you can maybe see that, right? Put the light on there. So, I don't know, you probably can't see that. But anyway, this is the 30 degrees combined side. And I will just do a little test here. Jeez, people. I can't really keep my... can't see what I'm doing with this camera in front of me. I'm going to color the grind edge angle with this Sharpie marker, and we'll see. I'm going to see how close we are to the 15 degrees. After a few passes on the sharpener, we'll see how much of this ink is still on there. I'm even trying to get ink down inside the little scallops where the triangle corner might have a harder time going down in there. So here's what we have. I have my freshly colored blade edge. I might as well color this this plain edged portion out by the tip as well. We'll just see what happens. Okay. It's very stylish. Yeah, let's get all this stuff out of the way. Okay, so we're going to see if the 30 degrees per side, or I should say the 15 degrees per side configuration is appropriate for the actual grind angle. So here we go. Now let's let's have a little look and see if we're getting any of that ink off of there. It looks like we're not, actually. It's kind of hard to tell with the light the way it is. It's hard to tell the difference between the black and the non-black part of the blade, because the light reflects off the black just like it does off the steel, right? So you can't really tell, but it looks to me like it's still pretty black. But I'm gonna just keep doing this. Now, I don't know if I should be going back and forth like this as I do sharpening a plain edge knife. I generally don't do it this way with the serrated knife. Of course, I don't generally carry a serrated knife either, so I really hardly ever sharpen serrations. I'm just going to go back and forth because I think it might actually be useful to try to get both sides of each scallop, right? Since if you go in just one direction, drawing the knife towards you, you're only going to be really affecting the forward side of each scallop. And I kind of want to get the sharpening effect on the entire curve, right? So I'm just going to, we'll just try this. Okay, so I think we are making a little progress. Let me, I'm gonna get out my little photon light here and we'll see if we can see any. Okay, so now I am in fact seeing a little bit of silver under, oh yeah, here we go. If you look down in, let me get this just right. You can start to see now how in the middle of the scallop, like right in the middle, there's still a black dot, but it's all silver colored around there, right? Here's another one, right? So this, it is in fact finding the angle, okay? Now, so this one here is almost cleaned out, right? So that looks like a pretty good angle. All right, so if I don't know that I need to actually get all of the ink off of there, as long as I'm getting the part nearest the actual edge, because that's where the sharpening needs to be happening, right? I'm not too interested in thinning out the shoulder up here above, or on the rounded end of the scallop, or I should say the, well, you know what I mean, down the scallop near the edge is the part we're trying to actually sharpen, right? So a few more strokes. And now I actually am keeping it vertical, or very nearly vertical. Maybe not quite, right? So if I want to do the tip part that is not serrated, I can just do that in the usual way, right? Being careful not to drag the tip across the stone in such a way as would round it off. But it really does feel like it. Okay, so there you go. You can see on this plane portion that is the angle. So it really is about 15 degrees just on that one side, right? And so, yeah, so you do a few strokes, and this is the white stone also. I'm not using the gray one because I don't really need to remove very much metal. I'm just touching up this edge, right? So I can just do that until I feel like I've made an impression there, and then I'll make a stroke over here with the blade oriented almost flat against the stone, but not quite, just to take off whatever residual burr there might be. Okay, and I didn't do any kind of a test beforehand. I did touch this with my fingers, and it feels to me like it's sharper than it was. I think it is, But over time, these contours that form these kind of ridges between the scallops will eventually get worn down, and the teeth will eventually get rounded off as well. So over time, the effect of the serration will become less and less toothy, less and less aggressive, but it will also become smoother. So it might make better, it might actually improve the functionality of the knife in some ways, in that it won't be as likely to snag on loose material. If you've seen my video where I used the plain edge military and the serrated military each to cut through an old shoe, the teeth on the serrated knife got hung up and caught in the leather and the shoelaces and stuff. But that's going to be less and less of a bother as the knife wears down, just because it becomes more and more rounded off, right? So yeah, anyway, that's the basic process. It's not all that exotic, right? And then just make a few passes over here every once in a while. Okay. Now, I believe, I've never actually tried this with the cold steel serrations, but I'm pretty sure you could sharpen them the same way. If I were to color this with a Sharpie, and I'd probably just do the same thing, right? It's just that I'm not going to have any chance to get down into these little serrations. The little tiny grooves will just simply be impervious. So anyway, oh, and just so you know, after I've done sharpening the knife, I will use one of these alcohol preps to just scrub off the whatever residual ink is still on there, and this usually works fine. I've never had any trouble removing the Sharpie ink. It comes off. You just have to kind of just wipe it. And now, just so you can see this one last time, you can see how the ink is down inside the middle of the serration. So the triangular corner of the rod seems to catch the edge and the curve or arc above the scallop, but the part down inside the scallop seems to be more or less immune. So there's still striations from the factory from the original factory grind down in the middle of each scallop, right? So I'm getting a little bit of the shoulder above the grind, and I'm getting the edge below the grind, and not really feeling any burr here. There's a little bit there on the plain edge part. We'll fix that. Okay. So yeah, you can maintain your edge. It feels really, really sharp to my thumb. I feel like it's a very effective edge. It's better than it was, right? And so cleaning off the ink is really not a problem. You have to be a little bit careful not to gouge yourself, but yeah, you just rub it down. And you'll see that there's now some marker along the corner of the rod. That will eventually just wear off, so I'm not worried about that. So anyway, that's how you sharpen serrations with the Spyderco Tri-Angle Sharpmaker. It's pretty simple. All right, thanks for watching.